The canvas bundle hit the counter with a sound that belonged to something heavier than it looked. Not a thud exactly, more like the weight of years landing all at once. Jasmine Harris did not look up immediately. She was adjusting a loopholed scope on a custom build for a client who had already called twice that week asking if it was ready. Her fingers worked the elevation turret with a kind of practiced annoyance that comes from being interrupted too many times in one morning. The sound registered somewhere in the back of her mind as just another walk-in. Probably someone with a box of inherited junk expecting five figures because Grandpa said it was special. She finished the adjustment, clicked the turret one last time, set the rifle down on the padded mat. Then she looked up. The man standing on the other side of the counter was tall, in the way people used to be tall before good nutrition made height common. Thin but not frail, somewhere in his late 70s. Dark skin marked by time in a way that suggested outdoor work and patience. He wore a gray suit jacket that had been pressed recently but probably bought decades ago. The collar of his shirt was crisp. His hands rested on either side of the canvas bundle, both palms flat, fingers spread, like he was steadying something that might try to escape if he let go. Jasmine pulled one AirPod out, left the other in, a habit she had developed for customers she had not yet decided deserved her full attention. The man said nothing. He just looked at her, not impatient, not expectant, just looking. The kind of looking that has already seen enough and does not require anything in return. She glanced at the bundle, old canvas, military green, stained in places, tied with fraying rope that had been knotted and reknotted so many times the original method was no longer clear. Jasmine set the AirPod on the counter, not in the case, just on the counter. A compromise. She looked at him. Still he said nothing, just gestured with his eyes toward the bundle, a slight downward glance. She reached for the knot. He did not move. She untied it. The rope fell away. She pulled back the canvas. What was underneath made her stop. Not because it was valuable, because it was the opposite. The rifle lying in that canvas looked like something someone had pulled out of a swamp and decided not to bother cleaning. The barrel was mottled with rust, deep rust, the kind that has eaten into the metal and changed its composition. The wooden stock was cracked near the grip, the finish worn down to bare wood in places. The scope mount was bent. One of the screws missing entirely. The whole thing looked like it had been buried and dug up and then forgotten in a damp basement for 50 years. Jasmine stared at the weapon for a long moment. Her professional assessment was instant and unforgiving. This rifle was beyond salvage. The metal was compromised. The wood was split. Even if someone wanted to restore it as a display piece, the cost would be prohibitive. And the result would still look like something that belonged in a scrap heap. She had seen plenty of neglected firearms in her 8 years working in this shop. Guns that had been stored improperly, guns that had suffered water damage, guns that families found in attics and basements and brought in hoping for a miracle. This was worse than any of those. Then she did something she would think about for a long time after. She laughed. It was not a polite laugh, not the kind you let out to soften a difficult conversation. It was real, short, unguarded. The kind that escapes when something is so far outside your expectation that your brain cannot process it fast enough to stop your mouth. The man did not react. His expression did not change. He just kept looking at her with those eyes that had already seen worse than a young woman laughing at something he brought into a gun shop. Sir Jasmine said, composing herself but not quickly enough, "I cannot even touch this without a tetanus shot." She meant it as a joke, sort of. The rust on that rifle was the kind that looked infectious, the kind that suggested decades of moisture and neglect. The man still said nothing. He just placed both hands on the rifle, gently, the way you touch something fragile, which made no sense because the thing was already destroyed. There was no value left to preserve, no function left to protect. It was junk, pure and simple. Jasmine leaned back slightly. tried to reset the conversation. "Okay," she said. "What do you need?" The man looked at her, then at the rifle. His gaze moved between them as if weighing something only he could measure. "I need you to check the serial number," he said. His voice was quiet, not weak, just economical. Like he had learned a long time ago that extra words do not add value. Like he had been in situations where speaking too much could get you killed. Jasmine blinked. "Sir," she said, "I appreciate you coming in, but this rifle is beyond restoration. Even if we could source the parts, which we probably cannot, the cost would exceed the value of the piece by a significant margin. If you are looking to sell, I can maybe offer you $20 for scrap metal, but that is being generous." "I am not selling," the man said. His tone did not change, did not get defensive or offended, just stated a fact. She paused. "Then what do you need?" "I need you to check the serial number," he repeated. Same tone, same cadence, like he had said it once and would say it as many times as necessary until it happened. Jasmine glanced toward the back room. Her father was in there somewhere, probably organizing ammunition, probably listening. Marcus Harris had run this shop for 37 years before handing it to Jasmine 3 years ago. He still came in most days, still knew more than she did, still had opinions he shared whether she asked or not. She had learned early that when something felt off, when a customer seemed unusual, her father's instincts were usually sharper than hers. She looked back at the man. "The serial number," she said slowly, "will not change the condition of the rifle. It will still be rusted through. It will still be cracked. It will still be worthless." "I understand," he said. She waited for more. Nothing came. Just that same steady look. The kind of look that does not blink first. The kind of look that has stared down worse things than a skeptical gun shop owner. Jasmine sighed. "Fine," she said. She reached for the rifle. His hands did not move. She paused. "I am going to need to pick it up," she said. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he lifted his hands, slowly, like he was releasing something precious, something irreplaceable. She pulled the rifle toward her. It was heavier than it looked, heavier than it should have been given the condition. She had handled thousands of rifles in her time working here. She knew what they should weigh. This one felt like it was carrying more than just metal and wood. She tilted it to find the serial number plate, found it, covered in dust and corrosion. She grabbed a cotton cloth from the drawer, wiped it down. The numbers came through, faint but readable. XM2104782. She typed them into the Federal Registry database, hit enter. The screen loaded and kept loading. Jasmine frowned. That was unusual. The database was fast, usually returned results in 3 seconds. She had been waiting 10, 15. She glanced at the man. He was watching the screen. Not her. The screen. Like he already knew what it was going to say. Like he had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. 20 seconds. The back room door opened. Marcus Harris stepped out. He was 65, compact, broad-shouldered in the way that comes from decades of physical work. He wore a faded Marines t-shirt and bifocals that sat low on his nose. He saw the rifle on the counter and stopped walking. His eyes went to the rifle, then to the man, then back to the rifle. He did not say anything, just stood there, 4 feet from the counter, staring. Jasmine looked at him. "Dad," she said, "the screen is taking forever." Marcus did not respond. He was still looking at the rifle, or maybe at the man. It was hard to tell. His jaw had set in that particular way it did when he was processing something significant, something that changed his understanding of a situation. Jasmine turned back to the screen. It had finally loaded. She read the result, read it again. Her mouth opened slightly. "This does not make sense," she said quietly. The screen displayed a classification she had never seen. Not in 8 years of working in this shop. Not in the 3 years since she had taken over. A red banner across the top. Classified. military file, contact Department of Defense. Below that, weapon status lost in combat, theater Vietnam, year 1969, issue date November 15th, 1969, issuing authority Rock Island Arsenal, assigned unit Special Operations Group, current status presumed destroyed. She looked up at the man. "Where did you say you got this?" she asked. He had not said. She knew that, but the question came out anyway. "Vietnam," he replied. "I brought it home." 4 simple words, but they carried the weight of something much larger, much more complicated. Marcus made a sound, not a word, just an exhalation. The kind that comes when something you suspected turns out to be true. When a story you heard whispered in barracks and briefings suddenly becomes real, becomes physical, becomes a rusted rifle sitting on a gun shop counter in Kansas. Jasmine looked at him. His face had gone pale, a specific kind of pale that she found unsettling in a man who did not rattle easily. A man who had served, who had seen combat, who did not scare. "Dad," she said, "do you know him?" Marcus walked forward slowly, each step deliberate. He stopped less than a meter from the counter. He looked at the man, really looked at him, not just seeing but studying. "What is your name?" Marcus asked. His voice was different, quieter, more careful. The kind of voice you use when you are standing on sacred ground and just realized it. "Leonard Washington," the man said. Marcus closed his eyes, opened them, looked at the rifle again. His hand came up, hovered over the weapon, did not touch it, just hovered. Like touching it without permission would be a violation. "I heard that name," Marcus said. "Late 70s, after I enlisted. They still talked about you in briefings. Not by name always, but the record, the numbers, the legend." Jasmine looked between them, talked about what she asked. Neither of them answered right away. The silence that followed her question was heavy with something she could not name, something old, something that had been buried and was now being exhumed. Leonard Washington looked at Marcus, then at Jasmine. His gaze settled on the rifle lying on the counter between them. "December 1969, Leonard said. A Shao Valley. My unit was doing reconnaissance before the pullout. 9 of us, special operations, deep jungle. We were mapping enemy positions for the withdrawal, making sure American forces could get out clean." He paused. "We were compromised, ambushed. I was the only one who came back." Jasmine felt something shift in the room, not the air pressure, something else, something that had to do with proximity to history, to the kind of history that does not get written in textbooks, but lives in whispered stories and classified files. Marcus was still staring at the rifle. She looked at the screen again, scrolled down, found a linked document, performance evaluation, attached to the original issue record. She clicked it. The file opened. She stopped scrolling. Read the number 3 times because she thought she was reading it wrong. She was not reading it wrong. The number on the screen was a kill count, confirmed, documented, verified through after-action reports and commanding officer attestation. 187 confirmed kills. 11 months of active deployment, November 1968 through December 1969. The kind of number that only existed for a very specific category of soldier. The kind that had its own classification. The kind that made you a weapon, a tool. Something the government used and then quietly filed away when the war ended and the public wanted to forget. She looked at Leonard Washington standing on the other side of her counter in a pressed gray suit jacket and thought about the laugh she had let out 3 minutes ago. The careless laugh, the dismissive laugh, the one that escaped before her brain could stop it, the one that treated this man like he was just another old-timer with junk he thought was valuable. "Sir," she said quietly, "I owe you an apology." He looked at her, studied her face, then shook his head slightly. "No," he said, "you did not know." She opened her mouth to say something else, to explain, to make it right. Marcus cut her off. Why now? Marcus asked, his voice still quiet, still careful. Leonard looked at him. My grandson found the rifle last week, Leonard said, in the garage, under some old tarps and boxes. He is 17. Curious. He asked me where I got it. Leonard paused. I told him I brought it home from the war. He asked me why I kept it, why I never mentioned it, why it was hidden. Another pause, longer this time. I did not have an answer he would understand, not without proof, not without something official that said, this rifle is what I say it is, that I am who I say I am. Jasmine looked at the rifle again, saw it differently now, not as junk, not as scrap metal, as evidence, as something that had survived when 9 men had not, as the only physical record of something that happened 54 years ago in a jungle most Americans had spent 54 years trying to forget, trying to bury, trying to pretend never happened. What kind of proof? Jasmine asked. Leonard reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, set it on the counter, unfolded it carefully. It was a handwritten note, faded, the ink old enough that it had turned brown, the handwriting shaky, young, the writing of someone who had not yet settled into a permanent hand. I need documentation, Leonard said. Something official, not just my word, something he can hold, something that says this rifle is what I say it is, that the serial number matches the record, that I was issued this weapon, that I carried it, that I brought it home. Something that proves I am not making this up, that I am not some old man living in the past telling stories that never happened. Jasmine read the note. It was from the grandson, short, 3 sentences. Grandpa, why do you have a military rifle in the garage? Did you use it? What happened? The questions were simple, direct, the kind of questions a 17-year-old asks when he finds something that does not fit the image of the grandfather he knows. The quiet old man who goes to church on Sundays and grows tomatoes in the backyard and never talks about the war. She folded the note, pushed it back across the counter. Leonard did not take it. He just looked at her, waiting. I can print the registry record, Jasmine said. Have it notarized. Attach it to a certificate of authenticity. That is standard for historical military items. It will show the serial number, the issue date, the assigned unit, everything the database has. Leonard nodded once. Slow, deliberate. Marcus spoke. There is a call you need to make first, Marcus said. Jasmine turned to him. What call? Marcus walked past her, opened a drawer beneath the main cabinet, a small one she rarely used, one that held business cards and contact information for specialty services, gun engravers, custom stock makers, military historians. He pulled out a business card, old, the edges slightly yellowed, the print faded. He set it on the counter. Jasmine picked it up. National Museum of Military History, Washington, D.C., a phone number, an extension handwritten in blue ink below the printed line. The handwriting was her father's. She recognized it. Why would I call them? Jasmine asked. Because 6 months ago, Marcus said a man came in here asking about Vietnam-era sniper rifles, specifically ones that were listed as lost in combat. He was doing research for an exhibition. He said if a weapon with that designation ever turned up, the museum wanted to know immediately. He left that card, asked me to call if anything came through. He looked at Leonard. I did not think it would turn up. I thought whoever had it was already dead, or that the weapon had been destroyed, or lost, or buried somewhere in the jungle rotting into the earth. Leonard looked at the card in Jasmine's hand. His expression did not change, but he reached out and touched the stock of the rifle, just his fingertips, barely a brush, like he was making sure it was still real, still there. Jasmine noticed something for the first time. There was writing carved into the wood below the grip. Crude letters, done with a blade, not professionally engraved, hand-carved. She tilted the rifle to read it. 8 names carved in 2 columns, 4 names on each side, and below them, a single line. They did not come home. I did, LW. Jasmine felt her throat tighten. She looked at Marcus. He was staring at the names, his jaw clenched, the way it always was when he was dealing with something difficult, something that hit too close. She looked at Leonard. He was still touching the rifle, still looking at those names, the way you look at a grave marker, with reverence, with sorrow, with the weight of survival. How, Jasmine asked. The word came out before she could stop it. How did you get it out? How did you survive? How did you carry this? Leonard looked at her. 3 kilometers through the jungle, he said quietly. Broken collarbone, 2 bullets in my right thigh, 1 grazed my ribs. I could barely walk, could not stand up straight. The rifle weighs 11 pounds unloaded, felt like 100. He paused. I was not going to leave it. She wanted to ask why, but she already knew. The rifle was not his. It was theirs. The 8 names carved into the wood. The 8 men who had touched it last. The 8 men who had carried it on patrol, who had cleaned it, who had trusted it, who had died within 4 minutes of each other while Leonard survived. The 8 men who did not get to bring anything home, not even themselves. Marcus cleared his throat. Make the call, he said to Jasmine, his voice rough, thick with something he was trying to keep down. She picked up the phone, dialed the number on the card. It rang twice. A man answered. National Museum of Military History, the voice said. Professional, clipped. This is Jasmine Harris, she said. Harris and Sons Gunsmith. Kansas, I was told to call this number if a Vietnam-era sniper rifle turned up in our shop. There was a pause on the line, a long one. She could hear breathing, the sound of a chair moving, paper shuffling. What is the serial number, the man asked. His voice had changed, more focused, more urgent. She read it aloud. XM2104782. He asked her to hold. She waited. 90 seconds. She counted. She could hear voices in the background, muffled, urgent. He came back with a different voice, calmer, more deliberate. This is Dr. Michael Stevens, the voice said, Senior Curator of Military Artifacts. Can you confirm the weapon is physically present? Yes, Jasmine said, and the individual who brought it. She looked at Leonard. He is here. Another pause. Not hesitation. More like someone choosing words prepared in advance. Words that had been waiting to be spoken for 14 years. Ms. Harris, Dr. Stevens said, we have been looking for that rifle for 14 years. Since the records were declassified in 2010, we did not know if it still existed. We assumed it had been destroyed. Lost. The database lists it as lost in combat. Presumed destroyed. That weapon should not exist. Jasmine lowered the phone slightly. She looked at Leonard. They have been looking for it, she said. Leonard nodded once, without explanation, without surprise, like he had always known someone would come looking eventually. She put the phone back to her ear. The museum would like to make an offer, Dr. Stevens said. For purchase or for loan, we are prepared to move quickly. This is a significant find. Jasmine relayed that to Leonard. He shook his head. He does not want to sell, Jasmine said into the phone. We understand, Dr. Stevens said quickly. That is not the only option. We would like to discuss a loan agreement, an exhibition, temporary or permanent, on whatever terms he prefers. We would provide compensation for the loan, insurance, security, full documentation. The voice gave a number. Jasmine listened, set the phone down on the counter face up, looked at Leonard. Did you hear that? I did, he said. It is a substantial amount, she said. I know what it is, he said. His tone was not dismissive, just final. Like money had never been part of this equation. Like money could not buy what this rifle represented, could not replace what it meant. Marcus had pulled a stool from behind the register. He sat on it with the posture of someone conserving energy. He was watching Leonard the way you watch someone you have built a mental image of and are now measuring against reality. You knew someone would come looking eventually, Marcus said. It was not a question. Leonard looked at him. I knew the record existed, Leonard said. Knew it would be declassified someday. Knew someone would wonder what happened to the rifle. And you kept it anyway, Marcus said. I was not keeping it from anyone, Leonard said. I was keeping it for someone. Jasmine understood then. Not just the request for documentation, not just a certificate of authenticity. The rifle was a conversation, the only kind that could carry 54 years of silence, the only kind that could explain to a 17-year-old boy why his grandfather kept a rusted weapon in the garage wrapped in canvas and tied with fraying rope, the only kind that could bridge the gap between who Leonard was now and who he had been then, between the quiet old man who grows tomatoes and the 22-year-old soldier who killed 187 enemy combatants and watched 8 brothers die and crawled 3 kilometers through the jungle to bring home a rifle he could have left behind. She picked up the phone again. He does not want to sell, she told Dr. Stevens, but he might be willing to talk. About a loan? About an exhibition? She looked at Leonard. He gave a slight nod. I will take your contact information, she said. She wrote it down. Phone number, email, direct extension. Dr. Stevens wanted to fly out immediately, wanted to see the rifle in person, wanted to verify, to document, to begin the process. Jasmine told him she would relay the information, that Leonard would be in touch. She hung up. The shop fell silent, the kind of silence that comes after held breath, after something significant has happened and everyone is still processing what it means. Leonard reached out, covered the rifle with the canvas again, slowly, carefully, the way you cover something that belongs to you in a way that cannot be replaced, the way you cover something sacred, something that has carried the weight of 8 souls for 54 years. Jasmine watched him and felt the weight of the laugh she had let out settle somewhere inside her chest. Not guilt exactly, something more instructive. The clear feeling of having completely misjudged a situation and knowing you would not make that mistake again. Knowing you would look at every rusted rifle differently from now on. Knowing you would ask before dismissing. Knowing you would listen before laughing. She processed the certificate of authenticity in silence, printed it on heavy stock paper, signed it, notarized it with the shop seal, added the database screenshot showing the classified designation, the lost in combat status, the assigned unit, everything. When it slid across the counter, Leonard read it once, folded it into thirds, put it in his jacket pocket next to the note from his grandson. He looked at her. Thank you, he said. Jasmine shook her head. Sir, she said, I am the one who should be thanking you for what he asked, for not walking out when I laughed, she said, for giving me the chance to make it right. He looked at her for a long moment. Then something shifted in his face. Not quite a smile, but close. Something that suggested understanding, forgiveness. The knowledge that people make mistakes and what matters is what you do after. You did not know, he said again. Now you do. He picked up the canvas bundle, turned toward the door. Jasmine spoke without thinking. Sir, she said. He stopped, turned back. If you decide to let them exhibit it, she said, I would like to be there when it opens. Leonard studied her, then nodded. I will let you know, he said. He walked out. The door closed behind him with the soft chime of the bell. Marcus stood up from the stool, walked to the counter, looked at the spot where the rifle had been. That man, Marcus said, quietly carried more weight out of that jungle than any person should have to carry, and he has been carrying it ever since, for 54 years, waiting for the right time to set it down. Jasmine said nothing. Just stood there thinking about 8 names carved into wood. about a 17-year-old boy asking questions, about the way history sits in garages wrapped in canvas, waiting for someone to finally ask why, about the way we dismiss things we do not understand, about the way rust and damage can hide value that goes deeper than money, deeper than condition, value that lives in memory, in sacrifice, in the weight of survival. 3 days passed. The shop continued its normal rhythm. Customers came and went. Repairs were logged. Sales were made. But Jasmine found herself thinking about Leonard Washington, about the rifle, about those 8 names. She kept seeing his face when he touched the stock. The reverence, the sorrow, the way 54 years had not diminished the weight he carried. Then a letter arrived, addressed to Marcus Harris, sent from Washington, D.C. National Museum of Military History. Official letterhead. Marcus opened it at the counter while Jasmine restocked ammunition in the back. He read it twice, said nothing, just stood there holding the pages. "What is it?" Jasmine finally asked. He turned the letter around, held it up. It was a formal proposal, detailed, comprehensive, a 1-year loan agreement, renewable at the lender's discretion, with an exhibition plan, complete historical display, the unit, the theater of operations, the record, the confirmed kills, the lost in combat designation, the 9 men, everything. The compensation was the same number she had heard on the phone. Substantial, enough to matter, enough to change someone's life. But Jasmine knew Leonard would not take it, knew the money was not why he kept the rifle, was not why he came to the shop, was not why any of this mattered. There was a second document attached, a formal letter of recognition from the Department of Veterans Affairs, not generic, not a form letter, specific, with Leonard Washington's full name, his service dates, his assigned unit, a description of the confirmed record, and language Jasmine would have expected from another era. The kind of language that acknowledged something that had remained officially unacknowledged for 50 years. Language that said this man did something extraordinary, something that mattered, something that should not be forgotten. Language that gave official weight to a story that had been classified, buried, hidden, denied. "Why did this come here and not to his house?" Jasmine asked. Marcus set the letter down. "Because he gave this address," Marcus said, when he filled out the intake form. "He wrote this address in the contact information field." She thought about that. He knew they would send it here, knew she would see it. Marcus nodded. "He came here for a reason," Marcus said. "Not just to access the registry, not just to get documentation." He looked at the letter again. "I think he wanted witnesses, wanted people who would see what happened, who would know the story, who would remember." Jasmine said nothing. She thought about Leonard's eyes, the way he had watched her when she laughed, without hurt, without anger, but with the patience of someone who had stopped needing other people's reactions to know his own worth. The patience of someone who had carried something so heavy for so long that external validation was meaningless. What mattered was internal truth. What mattered was the weight he carried. What mattered was honoring the 8 men who did not come home. Everything else was noise. She thought about a 17-year-old boy finding a canvas bundle in a garage. She thought about what it means to carry something for 50 years. Not because you want recognition, not because you are waiting for something, but because there is a specific person you are saving it for. And that person had not even been born yet when you walked out of that jungle carrying that weight, when you refused to leave the rifle behind, when you chose to carry 11 pounds of metal in wood in 8 souls, 3 kilometers through enemy territory with a broken collarbone and 2 bullet wounds, because leaving it meant leaving them, meant letting them disappear, meant letting them become nothing but names on a wall that most people walk past without reading. Marcus folded the letter, slipped it into an envelope. "Are you going to deliver it?" Jasmine asked. "We are going to deliver it," he said. She looked at him. "We," she said. He met her eyes. "You laughed at him," Marcus said. "Not cruel, just stating fact. Not judging, just observing. Now you are going to look him in the eye and hand him the recognition he has spent 50 years not asking for." She nodded slowly. Understood. This was not about delivering mail. This was about witnessing, about being present for something significant, about showing Leonard Washington that someone saw, that someone understood, that someone cared. They went to the address Leonard had left on the intake form, a single-story house on a quiet street, old trees in the front yard, a pickup truck in the driveway. The paint faded, but the truck clean, well-maintained. The kind of care that comes from someone who believes in taking care of what you have, in making things last, in not being wasteful. The yard was neat, grass cut, edges trimmed, a small garden along the side of the house, tomatoes, peppers, beans growing in careful rows. Jasmine knocked. The door opened. A boy stood there, 17, tall, thin in the way teenagers are before they fill out. Same eyes as Leonard, quiet eyes, observant eyes, the kind that watch and listen before speaking. "We have a delivery for your grandfather," Marcus said. The boy looked at the envelope in Marcus's hand, studied it for a moment, then nodded. "He is in the back," the boy said. "You can go through." His voice was soft, respectful, the kind of voice that suggests good upbringing, values, structure. They walked through the house, small, neat, furniture that had been in the same place for decades. You could tell by the wear patterns on the carpet, the fading on the upholstery where sunlight hit through the windows, photos on the walls, military portraits. Leonard in dress uniform, young, sharp, looking at the camera with the confidence of someone who has not yet seen combat. Family pictures, a wedding photo, black and white. Leonard in dress uniform, a woman beside him smiling in a way that suggested the photographer had worked hard to get that smile. Children at various ages, grandchildren, the progression of a life. They found Leonard in the backyard, sitting in a metal chair, the kind that has been repainted several times over several decades. The canvas bundle on a small table beside him. He was looking at nothing in particular, just the yard, the garden, the afternoon light filtering through the trees, the specific kind of stillness that belongs to people who have made peace with large things, who have carried weight for so long that rest feels foreign but necessary, who have learned that silence is not empty but full, full of memory, full of presence, full of the dead who live in the minds of the living. He looked at the envelope in Marcus's hand, at Jasmine. "I knew you would come," he said. Not surprised, not pleased or displeased, just stating fact, like he had known from the moment he left the shop that this moment would happen, that they would bring the letter, that they would witness. Jasmine sat in the chair across from him without being invited. It felt like the right thing to do. The letter of recognition, she said. 54 years late. Leonard looked at the envelope. Late, he said. Not missing. There is a difference. He took it, did not open it, just held it, felt the weight of it, then set it on top of the canvas bundle, next to the rifle that had gone to Vietnam and come back. That had crossed 3 kilometers of jungle. That had spent half a century in a garage. That had crossed a gun shop counter in a federal database in a phone call, and was still, after all that, exactly what it had always been, his and theirs. The 9 of them together in metal and wood in memory. Jasmine looked at the boy standing in the doorway, understood finally what Leonard had built. Not a legacy, not a monument, just a story, one that could not be told in words, only in a rifle, a number, 8 names carved in wood, a letter from Washington. Now the boy had it, and he would carry it forward, not the weight, the memory. There is a difference. The call came 4 hours after they left Leonard's house. Jasmine was closing the shop when her phone rang. Unknown number. Washington area code. She almost did not answer, almost let it go to voicemail. But something made her pick up. She answered. "This is Colonel William Davis," the voice said. "Department of Defense, Military Personnel Records Division. I understand you have been in contact regarding a rifle. Serial number X M2104782. He read it off. Perfect recall. No need to check notes or files. The number was memorized. Jasmine straightened. "Yes, sir," she said. "I need to speak with Mr. Washington." Colonel Davis said, "Can you arrange that?" She looked at the clock. It was nearly 7. "Evening. I can try," she said. "Do not try," the colonel said, not unkindly, just with the certainty of someone used to things happening when he says they should. Someone who gives orders and expects them to be followed. "Do it. I will hold." Jasmine called Leonard. He answered on the second ring. "Mr. Washington," she said, "there is a colonel from the Department of Defense on the other line. He wants to speak with you." The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. She could hear breathing, the sound of him processing. Then, "Put him through." She conferenced the call. "Mr. Washington," Colonel Davis said. His tone had changed, more formal, almost reverent. "The way you speak to someone whose file you have read, whose record you know, whose service demands respect even across decades and phone lines. Sir, I want to confirm some details before we proceed. The rifle in question, M21 sniper system, modified for special operations use, manufactured November 1969 at Rock Island Arsenal, issued same month for Ashau Valley operations, scope custom fitted, stock modified for better stability, serial number X M2104782. Is that correct?" "It is correct," Leonard said, his voice steady, not surprised that someone knew these details, knew the modifications, knew the history, and you carried that weapon out of combat after your unit was compromised, after the ambush on December 19th, 1969. "I did." Colonel Davis was quiet for a moment. The silence on the line was heavy with things unsaid, with the weight of classified files, with the knowledge of what happened in that jungle, what was lost, what survived. Then, "Sir, I am going to ask you something, and I need you to understand that how you answer will determine what happens next." The 8 names carved into the stock, the colonel said. "Can you verify those names? Can you confirm they are the 8 members of your unit who were killed in action on that date?" Leonard's voice did not change. "Staff Sergeant James Mitchell," he said. "Corporal Antoine Brown. Private First Class Darnell Hughes. Specialist Terrence Williams. Private Malik Johnson. Corporal Cedric Grant. Private First Class Reginald Foster. Specialist Lamar Stevens." He said each name with the same cadence, the same weight, like he had said them 1,000 times before in his head, like they were a prayer, a litany, a roll call that never ended, the weight of remembering, the duty of survival. Colonel Davis exhaled. "Mr. Washington," he said, "I am going to send someone to you tonight, a specialist, Dr. Patricia Coleman. She is the foremost expert on Vietnam-era military weapons. She will need to examine the rifle, verify the details, authenticate the weapon, document everything. If everything checks out, and I believe it will based on your confirmation of those names, the Smithsonian wants to move quickly. They have been waiting for this rifle for a very long time." Jasmine spoke. "Colonel," she said, "this is Jasmine Harris, the gunsmith. I have the rifle here at my shop. Can the examination happen here?" A pause. "Miss Harris," the colonel said, "I appreciate your involvement, but this needs to happen at Mr. Washington's residence for security reasons. We cannot transport a weapon of this significance without proper protocols." And he paused for reasons of respect. This rifle has been in Mr. Washington's care for 54 years. The examination should happen where he has kept it, where he has honored it, where he has carried that burden. Jasmine understood. The rifle was not evidence. It was a memorial. You could not examine a memorial in a gun shop. You examined it where it had been kept, where it had been waiting, where it had lived in darkness and silence, holding the memory of 8 men who died in seconds and 1 man who spent decades making sure they were not forgotten. Leonard spoke. "I will be here," he said. "The specialist will arrive at 2200 hours, Colonel Davis said. 10 p.m. She is flying in from D.C. now. Military transport. Direct flight. She will treat the rifle with the respect it deserves, with the reverence it has earned." The call ended. Jasmine looked at her phone, then at her father. "Dad," she said, "we need to go back." Marcus was already reaching for his keys. Dr. Patricia Coleman arrived exactly at 2200 hours, 10 p.m. precision, military time. The kind of punctuality that comes from a lifetime of schedules and protocols and understanding that time matters. That when you say 2200 hours, you mean 2200 hours, not 5 after, not 10 after. Jasmine and Marcus were already there, sitting in Leonard's small living room. The grandson Darius sat in the corner, watching everything, saying nothing, learning, witnessing, beginning to understand that the grandfather he knew was only part of the story, that there was a whole other person underneath. A person who had done things Darius could not imagine, had survived things Darius could not comprehend, had carried weight Darius was only now beginning to see. Dr. Coleman was 58, black, gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, professional, glasses on a chain around her neck. She wore a dark blazer and carried a hard case that looked like it belonged to a scientist. The kind of case that holds delicate instruments, precision tools, things that measure and document and verify. She shook Leonard's hand, held it a moment longer than necessary. "Mr. Washington," she said, "it is an honor." She meant it. You could hear it in her voice, the weight of respect, the understanding of what she was witnessing, who she was meeting, what this moment represented. She set the case on the table, opened it. Inside was an array of tools, white cotton gloves, the kind archivists use when handling historical documents, a jeweler's loupe, 10 times magnification, an LED pen light, focus beam for examining details in shadow, a digital caliper for precise measurements, a portable UV light for detecting traces invisible to the naked eye, a small leather-bound notebook for documentation, for notes, for recording observations. She put on the gloves, looked at Leonard. "May I?" she asked. He nodded. She unwrapped the canvas, carefully, slowly, like she was unwrapping something sacred, something that deserved reverence. She lifted the rifle with both hands, set it on a black cloth she had spread across the table. The contrast made the rust more visible, made the damage more apparent, made the age undeniable. She did not speak for a long time, just looked. Her hands moved over the rifle slowly, methodically, checking every surface, every seam, every joint, looking for modifications, for evidence, for the markers that would confirm or deny authenticity. She pulled out the loop, examined the serial number, traced each digit with her gloved finger, checked the depth, the style, the placement, looked for signs of alteration. Of forgery, found none. She checked the manufacturer marks, the proof stamps, the inspection marks, all there, all correct, all consistent with a rifle manufactured in November 1969 at Rock Island Arsenal. She took photographs, dozens of them, different angles, different lighting, macro shots of the serial number, the manufacturer marks, the modifications, building a complete visual record. Then she found something. She stopped, leaned closer, Put the loop to her eye, adjusted the focus. Mr. Washington, she said quietly, there is an impact mark on the stock. Near the grip, it looks like a projectile strike. A bullet. She looked at him. A bullet, Leonard said. Grazed the stock. Missed my head by 4 inches. December 20th, 1969. 1400 hours. I remember the sound. The way the air moved. The way time slowed. The way I knew I should be dead but was not. Dr. Coleman nodded slowly. Made a note in her leather book. Date. Time. Location of impact. Continued examining. She found the carved names, ran her gloved finger over them, traced each letter, felt the depth, the consistency. These were done with a blade, she said, probably a combat knife. The depth is consistent, the spacing deliberate. Someone carved these slowly, taking their time, making sure each letter was legible, making sure each name would last. She looked at Leonard. When did you carve these? 2 weeks after I got home, Leonard said. January 1970, I was in a hospital in California. Naval Hospital in Oakland. They had me in traction for the leg, pins in the collarbone, could not walk, could barely move, but I could carve. Spent 3 days on it. Nurse tried to take the knife away, said it was against regulations. I told her she could try. She left me alone after that. Dr. Coleman took more photographs, close-ups of each name, of the inscription below, of the way the wood had aged around the carved letters, creating shadows, creating depth, making the names permanent, making them last. Then she did something unexpected. She reached for the stock, found a small latch near the butt plate, hidden, subtle, the kind of thing you would only find if you knew it was there or if you were looking very carefully. She pressed it. The plate popped open. Jasmine leaned forward. She had not known that was there, had not seen it when she examined the rifle in the shop. Dr. Coleman pulled out a small compartment. Inside was a piece of paper, folded, wrapped in plastic, old plastic, the kind that yellows with age, military issue, the kind they use to waterproof documents in the field. She looked at Leonard. Did you know this was here? She asked. No, Leonard said. His voice had changed, quieter, tighter, something in his throat. Dr. Coleman carefully removed the plastic, unfolded the paper. It was a letter, handwritten. The ink faded but still legible. Blue ink, the kind that comes from a government-issue pen. She read it silently, then looked at Leonard. Her eyes were wet. Mr. Washington, she said, this letter is addressed to someone named Patricia. It is signed by Lieutenant James Mitchell. Do you know who that is? Leonard closed his eyes, opened them. Moisture there now. Jimmy, he said, my commanding officer, platoon leader, best officer I ever served under. He did not make it out. Dr. Coleman handed him the letter. Leonard took it. His hand started to shake, just slightly, just enough to notice. Jasmine could see his jaw working, like he was trying to keep something inside from coming out, trying to maintain control, trying not to break after 54 years of holding it together. What does it say? Darius asked from the corner, his first words since they had arrived. His voice soft, almost afraid, like he knew the answer would change things, would change how he saw his grandfather, would change how he understood the world. Leonard looked at his grandson. His eyes were different now, wet, raw, exposed. He looked back at the letter. He read it aloud, his voice steady despite the shaking hands, despite the weight of 54 years pressing down on him. If you are reading this, I am gone. Tell my daughter Patricia I loved her. Tell her I thought about her every day. Tell her I am sorry I will not be there to see her grow up. Tell her to be strong. The rifle is yours now, Wash. You earned it. Every shot, every mission, every time you saved our lives and we did not even know it was happening. Stay alive. Get home. Make it count. Do not let this be for nothing, JM. The room was silent, complete, total. The kind of silence that follows a revelation, that follows truth spoken after decades of silence. Dr. Coleman spoke softly. Mr. Washington, she said, did you know Lieutenant Mitchell had a daughter? I knew, Leonard said. Her name was Patricia. She was 11 when he died, almost 12. Birthday was January 3rd. He talked about her all the time, about how he was going to teach her to drive when he got back, how he was going to walk her down the aisle someday, how he was going to be the grandfather who spoiled her kids. I tried to find her once, in the 80s, wanted to give her his dog tags, his Bible, things I carried out with me, could not locate her. Common last name, no forwarding information, trail went cold. Dr. Coleman made a note. We can find her, she said, if you want us to. We have resources, databases, military family networks. If she is alive, we can find her. Leonard looked at the letter again, touched it like it was made of glass, like it might disappear if he held it too hard. Yes, he said, I want you to. Dr. Coleman nodded, continued the examination, checked the barrel, looked down the bore with the penlight, saw the rifling, worn but intact, checked the action, the bolt, the trigger assembly. Everything's still there. Everything's still functional despite the rust, despite the age, despite 54 years of sitting in a garage. She used the UV light, shined it across the stock, the barrel, the action, found traces of something, stopped, leaned in, blood, she said quietly. Old blood, on the stock where you would grip it, on the barrel, dried, oxidized, but still there, still visible under UV. She took samples, carefully, cotton swabs, sealed containers, for DNA testing, not for verification. Leonard's word was enough, but for the record, for history, for the families who might want to know, who might need proof, who might need something physical to hold on to. She worked for another hour, measured everything, documented everything, photographed everything, built a complete record of the weapon, its condition, its history, its significance. Finally, she sat back, removed her gloves, looked at Leonard. Mr. Washington, she said, this rifle is exactly what you say it is. More than that, it is one of the most significant military artifacts from the Vietnam War that I have ever examined. Not because of its condition, not because it is rare, but because it is complete, because it has provenance, because it has a story that can be verified and documented and told, because it represents something larger than itself. The Smithsonian will want to exhibit this. The Department of Defense will want to recognize it. Recognize you, but more than that, there is something you need to understand. Your record, the confirmed kills, the mission reports, all of that was classified for 50 years. It was declassified in 2010. Since then, military historians have been trying to piece together what happened in A Shau Valley in late 1969. Your name comes up a lot, but there was no physical evidence, no weapon, no documentation beyond reports. This rifle changes that. This rifle proves everything. She paused. You are not just a veteran, Mr. Washington. You are a piece of living history, and that rifle is the evidence. Leonard looked at her, held her gaze. I do not need recognition, he said. I know Dr. Coleman said, but your grandson does. She looked at Darius. He needs to know what his grandfather did. Not just that you served, but what you carried, what you served, what you sacrificed. He needs to know that the quiet man who grows tomatoes in the backyard is also the man who did things most people cannot imagine, who carried weight most people would have left behind, who chose honor over survival and somehow got both. Leonard followed her gaze, looked at Darius. The boy was staring at the rifle, his face unreadable, processing. trying to reconcile the grandfather he knew with the soldier he was learning about. Dr. Coleman packed her tools. Before I go, she said, I need to tell you something. The museum has been looking for this rifle for 14 years, but it is not just the museum. There are families, 8 families, the families of the men whose names are carved into that stock. They have been looking too, not for the rifle, for closure, for proof that their fathers and brothers and sons did not die forgotten in a jungle, that someone remembered, that someone carried them home, even if it was just their names. Jasmine felt her chest tighten, felt something rising in her throat. Dr. Coleman looked at Leonard. If you agree to the exhibition, she said, we will find those families. We will invite them. We will tell them what you did. We will show them that their loved ones were not forgotten, that someone carried them for 54 years, that someone made sure they mattered. Leonard was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded. Once. Do it, he said. Dr. Coleman stood, shook his hand again. The paperwork will be sent to you within 48 hours, she said. Loan agreement, exhibition proposal, insurance documents, everything. If you have any questions, call me directly, anytime, day or night. She handed him a card, personal cell phone number written on the back. Then she left. The room felt different after she was gone, emptier, but also lighter, like something had been lifted, like a weight that had been carried for 54 years had finally been acknowledged, finally been seen, finally been witnessed by someone who understood what it meant. Marcus stood. We should go, he said to Jasmine. Let Mr. Washington rest. Let him process. Jasmine nodded, but before she could move, Darius spoke. Grandpa, he said, why did not you ever tell me? Leonard looked at his grandson, really looked at him, saw him in a way he had not before, saw him as someone who could carry this, who needed to carry this. Because some things are too heavy to say out loud, Leonard said. You have to show them. You have to wait until the right time, until the right moment, until the person is ready to receive it. And I was not ready to show you until now, until you found the rifle, until you asked, until you made me understand that it was time. Darius stood, walked to the table, looked down at the rifle, at the 8 names, at the letter from Lieutenant Mitchell, at the evidence of something he had never known about, had never suspected. He started, then stopped, not sure what he was asking permission for. Leonard nodded. Darius reached out, touched the stock, ran his finger over the carved letters. These men, Darius said, they were your friends. They were my brothers, Leonard said. Darius looked at him. And you carried this for them for 54 years, Leonard shook his head. I carried it for you, he said, so you would know, so you would understand what it means to be part of something bigger than yourself. So you would understand what sacrifice means, what duty means, what brotherhood means. Darius did not say anything, just stood there with his hand on the rifle, feeling the weight of it, the history of it, the responsibility of it. Jasmine and Marcus let themselves out quietly. In the car, Marcus spoke. That boy is never going to be the same, he said. Jasmine looked at him. Is that good or bad? Marcus started the engine. It is necessary, he said. Some things need to be passed down. Some weight needs to be carried forward, not because it is pleasant, but because it is true, because it matters, because forgetting would be worse than remembering. 4 days later, Jasmine received an email. From Dr. Coleman, subject line, Patricia Mitchell located. She opened it, read it, then called Leonard. Mr. Washington, she said. They found her, Lieutenant Mitchell's daughter. She lives in Ohio, retired teacher, 66 years old. They contacted her, told her about the letter, about the rifle, about you. She wants to meet you. The silence on the line was different this time. Not empty, full, thick with emotion. When Leonard asked, this weekend, if you are willing, they will fly her to Kansas, put her up in a hotel, Provide transportation. Whatever you need. Jasmine waited. I am willing, Leonard said. The meeting happened at Leonard's house, Saturday morning. Jasmine was not invited. This was private, personal, between Leonard and the daughter of the man who saved his life more times than he could count. But Leonard called her afterward, told her what happened. His voice was different, lighter, like something had been released. Patricia Mitchell Williams arrived at 10 a.m., Leonard said. She was a small woman, white, gray hair, glasses. She carried a photograph. Her father in uniform, young, smiling, the same smile Leonard remembered from 54 years ago. She stood in my doorway and looked at me for a long time, Leonard continued. Then she said, "You knew my father," not a question, a statement, like she could see it in my face, in my eyes, in the way I stood. I nodded, told her he was a good man, the best officer I ever served under, the kind of leader who earned respect not through rank, but through character. She started crying, not loud, not dramatic, just tears running down her face. She had waited 54 years to hear someone say that, to hear someone who knew him, who served with him, who could tell her things the Army never put in the death notification letter. They sat in the living room for 3 hours, Leonard told Jasmine. Patricia brought boxes, documents, photos, letters her father had sent home. Leonard had never seen them, had not known they existed. She read them aloud. Letters about the platoon, about the missions, about Leonard. "Wash is the best shot I have ever seen," one letter said. "He does not talk much, but when he does, people listen. He saved 3 of us last week and did not even mention it. Just did his job and moved on." Patricia cried when she read that. Said she never knew her father respected Leonard that way. Never knew Leonard existed. Leonard brought out the letter, the one hidden in the rifle stock, handed it to her. She read it again, held it to her chest, sobbed, real sobs. 54 years of grief coming out all at once. "Thank you," she said, "for keeping this, for bringing him home, for making sure he was not forgotten." Leonard told her the truth, told her he did not know the letter was there, that Lieutenant Mitchell must have hidden it in the stock compartment before the last mission, before the ambush, like he knew, like he had a feeling, like he wanted to make sure his last words to his daughter made it home even if he did not. Patricia looked at the rifle, Leonard said, asked if she could see it, touch it. He unwrapped it. She stood, walked over, touched the stock where her father's name was carved. "He carried this," she asked. Every day, Leonard told her. "He took care of it, took care of us. When he died, I made a promise. I would not let it be forgotten." Patricia looked at him. "You kept that promise," she said. "For 54 years. You kept your word to a dead man." They talked until early afternoon, Leonard said, about Lieutenant Mitchell, about the war, about what came after. Patricia told him about her life, how she became a teacher, how she married a good man who understood that her father's absence was a presence in her life, how she named her son James after her father, how she always wondered what her father had been like beyond the uniform in the photograph, beyond the sanitized stories her mother told. Leonard told her things he had never told anyone, how Lieutenant Mitchell read his Bible every night before sleep, how he wrote letters to Patricia every Sunday without fail, even when there was no way to mail them, how he talked about teaching her to ride a bike when he got home, how he died covering his men during the ambush, how his last words were not a prayer or a plea, but a simple instruction. Get them out, Wash. Get them all out. Leonard did not get them all out. He got one, the rifle, and now 54 years later, he got one more thing out, the letter. Patricia's hands shook as she held it. Can I keep this? She asked. Leonard looked surprised. Of course, he said. It was always yours. I was just holding it. When Patricia left, she hugged Leonard, held on longer than strangers usually do. My son's name is James, she said. After my father, I am going to tell him about you, about what you did. I am going to tell him that as Grandfather's last thought was of me, that someone cared enough to remember, that someone kept his promise for 54 years. That night, Leonard called Jasmine again. There is something else, he said. The museum found 6 of the 8 families. They are all coming to the exhibition. They want to meet me. Jasmine felt her throat tighten. Mr. Washington, she said, that is incredible. That is more than most people could hope for. I know, he said. I do not know if I am ready. You do not have to be ready, Jasmine said. You just have to show up, like you always have, like you did in that jungle, like you did for 54 years. You just show up and be present and let them see what you carried. Leonard was quiet. Then, will you come, he asked, to the exhibition? When it opens? Jasmine did not hesitate. Yes, sir, she said. I will be there. I would not miss it. 3 months passed. Preparation, documentation, verification. The Smithsonian worked quickly, built the exhibition around the rifle, around Leonard's story, around the 8 men who did not come home. They found more records, more mission reports, more details about what happened in Ashoe Valley, about the ambush, about the extraction, about how Leonard was found 12 hours after the attack, half dead, delirious from blood loss, still clutching the rifle, refusing to let go even when the medics tried to take it, saying the same thing over and over. They are still in there. Their names are in there. Do not leave them. The exhibition opened on a Friday in October. The Smithsonian, Washington, D.C., The Last Rifle, a story of brotherhood. Jasmine flew in with her father. Marcus wore his dress uniform. First time in years. Jasmine wore black, simple, respectful. The exhibition hall was packed. Hundreds of people, veterans, families, historians, press, museum donors, government officials. In the center of the room behind bulletproof glass was the rifle, lit perfectly, dramatically, the rust visible, the damage visible, the 8 names visible. Next to it, blown-up photographs, the 9 men of the unit, young in uniform. Smiling in that way soldiers smile when they do not know yet what is coming, when they still believe in invincibility, when death is abstract. Below the photographs, the mission reports, declassified, detailed, the record of what happened in Ashoe Valley, the ambush, the casualties, the extraction, and in a separate case, the letter from Lieutenant Mitchell, preserved, displayed with a photograph of Patricia Mitchell Williams holding it, her father's words, finally home, finally delivered. The display also included Leonard's service record, the confirmed kills, the commendations, the Purple Heart, the Bronze Star, the Silver Star, things Leonard never talked about, never displayed, never mentioned, just carried quietly for 54 years while growing tomatoes and going to church and being a grandfather who seemed ordinary until you looked close enough to see the weight. Leonard stood in front of the display, Darius beside him, both in suits. Leonard's hands shook slightly, not from age, from emotion, from seeing 54 years of silence made public, made official, made real in a way that could not be denied or dismissed or forgotten. 6 families approached, one by one, each carrying something, a photograph, a letter, a medal, something that belonged to the man whose name was carved on that rifle. The first was a woman in her 50s. She carried a faded photograph, black and white, a young man in uniform, smiling. She walked up to Leonard with deliberate steps, stopped in front of him, looked at him for a long moment. My name is Alicia Brown, she said. My father was Corporal Antoine Brown. She placed the photograph next to the rifle display, behind the glass, where it would stay, where it would become part of the exhibition, part of the memorial. My father, she said, her voice breaking. I never knew what happened to him. just that he died. The Army sent a letter. It said killed in action, December 19, 1969. Nothing else, no details, no context. Just 3 words that destroyed my mother. She paused, looked at the 8 names on the rifle. Now I know he did not die alone. Now I know someone was there. Someone saw. Someone remembered. She hugged Leonard, held on until her shoulders stopped shaking. Thank you, she whispered, for remembering him, for carrying him, for making sure he was not forgotten, for giving me this, for giving me proof that he mattered, that his death meant something, that someone cared enough to carve his name into wood and carry it 3 kilometers through hell. The next was a man in his 60s, tall, broad, former Marine. You could tell by the way he stood, the way he held himself, the bearing that never goes away even decades after discharge. He saluted Leonard first, formal, crisp, then shook his hand. Marcus Johnson, he said. My father was Private Malik Johnson. My mother never remarried, he said. 40 years alone. She told me my father was a hero, but she did not have details, just faith, just the belief that he died doing something important, something noble. His voice cracked. You proved she was right. You gave me proof. Thank you, sir. A younger woman approached next, maybe 40. She had a boy with her, 10 years old. I am Keisha Hughes, she said, granddaughter of Private First Class Darnell Hughes. She gestured to the boy. This is Darnell III, named after a man I never met, a man my father barely remembered. He was 2 when his father died. Has no memories, just stories, just fragments. She looked at the rifle, at the carved name. But now we have this. Now we have proof he existed, that he mattered, that his name means something, that he is not just a story we tell. He is real. He was real. And someone remembered. One by one they came, each with a photograph, each with a story, each with 50 years of questions finally answered. The daughter of Specialist Terrence Williams, the nephew of Corporal Cedric Grant, the grandson of Private First Class Reginald Foster. Some cried, some stood in silence. Some spoke at length about the man they never knew or barely remembered, about the absence that shaped their lives, about the questions that haunted them, about the relief of finally having answers, of finally knowing that someone was there, that someone saw, that someone cared enough to remember. One elderly woman approached, the sister of Specialist Lamar Stevens. She was in her 80s, frail, walked with a cane. She did not say anything at all, just touched the glass where her brother's name was displayed, stood there for 10 minutes, hand on the glass, eyes closed, lips moving, praying maybe, or talking to him, or just being present with him in a way she had not been able to for 54 years. Leonard watched, said nothing, just let her have her moment, let her grieve, let her remember, let her say goodbye in a way she never got to when he died. Patricia Mitchell Williams was there too. She stood beside Leonard as each family came forward. She understood something the others were still learning, that Leonard had not just carried a rifle out of that jungle, he had carried their fathers, their brothers, their sons. He had carried them for 54 years, waiting for this moment, when he could finally set them down, when he could finally let someone else hold the weight, when he could finally share the burden he had carried alone for so long. The museum director gave a speech, talked about sacrifice, about memory, about the importance of preserving history, about the role of museums in honoring those who served, about the power of objects to tell stories that words cannot, about how this rifle was more than metal and wood. It was a testament, a memorial, a promise kept. Then he introduced Leonard, asked him to say a few words. Leonard walked to the podium slowly. Darius helped him, steadied him, made sure he did not fall. Leonard looked out at the crowd, took a breath. The room went quiet, complete silence. Everyone waiting. "I do not have much to say," Leonard began, his voice quiet but clear, amplified through the microphone. "I am not good with words, never have been, but I want you to know something. Those 8 men, they were better than me, braver than me. They deserved to come home. They deserved to see their children grow up, to meet their grandchildren, to grow old, to live. I do not know why I made it, and they did not. I have spent 54 years trying to answer that question, trying to understand why I got to live and they had to die. I still do not have an answer, probably never will, but I have this rifle and I have their names, and now you have them too." He paused. "That is all I wanted, for their names to be remembered, for their families to know they mattered, for someone to acknowledge that they existed, that they were real people, not just statistics, not just numbers on a casualty list. Real men with real families who love them and miss them and deserve to know what happened. That is all." He stepped back. The room erupted in applause, but Leonard did not seem to hear it. He just looked at the rifle behind the glass, at the 8 names carved into the wood, at the evidence that they had existed, that they had fought, that they had died, and that someone had carried them home. After the ceremony, Jasmine found Leonard sitting alone in a side gallery, away from the crowd, away from the noise, just him and Darius. She approached slowly. "Mr. Washington," she said. "That was powerful. That was important." She could not find better words. Leonard looked at her. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I needed someone here who knew." Knew what? Knew what it was like before all this, before the recognition, before the exhibition, before the families, when it was just an old rifle in a garage, when no one cared, when I was just an old man with a secret no one would believe. Jasmine sat down next to him. "I will never forget that day," she said. "The day you walked into my shop. The day I laughed." Leonard looked at her. "That laugh," he said, "it reminded me why I kept waiting, why I did not come forward sooner, because I knew most people would not understand, would not see past the rust, would not see the value, would dismiss it, would dismiss me." He smiled slightly. "You saw past it eventually. That is what matters. You looked. You asked questions. You listened. You believed." Jasmine felt her throat tighten. "I almost did not," she said. "I almost sent you away. Almost told you to take it to a scrap yard. Almost missed the whole thing." Leonard nodded. "But you did not," he said. "And that makes all the difference." The exhibition ran for 1 year. During that time, over 200,000 people walked through the hall, saw the rifle, read the names, learned the story, stood in front of the glass, and tried to imagine what it meant to carry 11 pounds of metal and wood in 8 souls 3 kilometers through enemy territory while bleeding out from multiple wounds. Tried to imagine what it meant to keep that promise for 54 years, to honor the dead by refusing to let them be forgotten. Jasmine visited 3 times. Each time she stood in front of the display and thought about the day Leonard walked into her shop, about the laugh she let out, about how close she had come to sending him away, about how much would have been lost if she had. On her 3rd visit, she brought a notebook, started writing, not for herself, for the shop. She wanted to document what happened, wanted to make sure that if another veteran walked in with something that looked like junk, she would remember this, would remember Leonard, would remember that value is not always visible, that history does not always announce itself, that sometimes the most important things look like trash until someone takes the time to look closer, to ask questions, to listen, to believe. She wrote about the rust, about the carved names, about the letter hidden in the stock, about the 8 families who got closure after 50 years, about the grandson who learned what his grandfather had carried. She wrote it all down, put it in a binder, labeled it lessons. She put the binder on the shelf behind the counter, where she would see it every day, where it would remind her to look twice, to ask questions, to never laugh at something she did not understand. 6 months into the exhibition, Leonard's health declined. Darius called Jasmine, told her. Grandpa's in the hospital, Darius said. Heart, congestive heart failure. They say he does not have much time, maybe days, maybe a week. Jasmine flew to Kansas that night, went straight to the hospital. Leonard was in a bed, oxygen tubes, monitors beeping, IVs in both arms. He looked smaller, frailer, but his eyes were the same. Still quiet, still steady, still carrying the weight even when the body could not. Mr. Washington, Jasmine said. He looked at her, smiled slightly. You came, he said. Of course I came, she said. She sat in the chair next to the bed. They did not talk much, just sat. Presence mattered more than words. After a while, Leonard spoke. The rifle, he said. When the exhibition ends, it goes to Darius. I know, Jasmine said. He needs to understand, Leonard said. It is not a trophy. It is not something to display for pride. It is a responsibility. It is a burden. It is a promise that has to be kept, has to be carried forward, has to be honored. Jasmine nodded. I will make sure he understands, she said. Leonard closed his eyes, rested, breathing labored, shallow. Each breath a fight. Jasmine stayed until visiting hours ended, then went to find Darius. He was in the waiting room, head in his hands, looking lost, looking like the 17-year-old he was instead of the man he was trying to become. She sat next to him. He is going to die, Darius said. Not a question, a statement. Yes, Jasmine said. Probably soon. Darius looked at her. I do not know what to do with the rifle, he said. I do not know how to carry what he carried. I do not know if I am strong enough. Your grandfather does, Jasmine said. He has been preparing you. You just did not know it. Every moment since you found that rifle in the garage, every conversation, every story, every moment of silence, he was preparing you. Darius shook his head. I am 17, he said. I do not know anything about war, about sacrifice, about any of this. I do not even understand what he did. Why it mattered. You do not have to understand it all, Jasmine said. You just have to remember. That is what the rifle is for, to help you remember, to carry the story forward, to make sure they are not forgotten. Leonard died 4 days later, quietly, in his sleep. Darius was with him. So was Patricia Mitchell Williams. She had flown in when she heard, sat with Leonard in his final hours, held his hand, told him that her father would be proud, that she was proud, that what he did mattered, that she would make sure people knew, that his promise was kept. Leonard squeezed her hand, said nothing, just squeezed, then let go. The funeral was small, military honors, a flag, a 3-volley salute, taps. The rifle was not there, still in the exhibition, still being viewed by thousands, still telling its story, still keeping the promise. Jasmine attended, so did Marcus, so did Dr. Coleman, so did Patricia, so did 4 of the 8 families from the exhibition. They did not know Leonard well, but they knew what he had done, what he had carried. That was enough. After the funeral, there was a gathering at Leonard's house. People brought food, told stories, shared memories. Darius sat in the corner, same chair his grandfather used to sit in, looking at the spot where the rifle used to be before the exhibition, before the world knew, before everything changed. Patricia sat next to him. You look like him, she said. Darius looked at her. I do, he asked. In the eyes, she said. You have his eyes, the same quiet strength, the same steadiness, the same sense of carrying something heavy even when you are not moving. Darius did not know what to say to that. Patricia continued. Your grandfather saved my father's last words, she said. kept them safe for 54 years, carried them through a jungle, through a war, through decades of silence. Do you know how rare that is? How precious? Darius shook his head. Most people lose things, Patricia said. Letters, photographs, memories. They fade, they disappear. Time takes them. Neglect takes them. But your grandfather did not let that happen. He held on, even when it hurt, even when it would have been easier to let go, even when no one would have known. That is who he was, she paused. That is who you come from. Darius looked at her. I do not know if I can be that, he said. You do not have to be exactly like him, Patricia said. You just have to carry what he gave you. The rifle, the story, the names, the promise, you carry those forward. You make sure the next generation knows. You make sure they are not forgotten. That is enough. 6 months later, the exhibition closed. The one-year loan agreement completed. Dr. Coleman called Darius, told him it was time. The rifle was ready to come home. She offered to ship it, secure transport, armed guards, full insurance. Darius said no. He wanted to pick it up in person, wanted to bring it home himself, wanted to complete the journey his grandfather started 54 years ago. Jasmine offered to go with him. They flew to Washington, went to the Smithsonian. Dr. Coleman met them in her office. The rifle was there, in a custom case, climate-controlled, padded, protected. She opened it. Darius looked at the rifle, saw it differently now. Not as a weapon, as a memorial, as a promise, as 8 lives that did not come home and one that did. He reached out, stopped. Can I, he asked. It is yours, Dr. Coleman said. It has always been yours, even before you knew it existed. Darius lifted it, felt the weight, looked at the 8 names carved into the stock, touched each one. Dr. Coleman handed him an envelope. Inside, she said, is a letter from the museum, officially recognizing your grandfather's service, thanking him for the loan, documenting what the exhibition accomplished, how many people it reached, how many families found closure, how many young people learned about sacrifice. And there is also a list, the 8 families, their contact information, in case you ever want to reach out, in case you ever need to share the burden, in case you ever feel like it is too heavy to carry alone. Darius took the envelope. Thank you, he said. Dr. Coleman smiled. Your grandfather was an extraordinary man, she said. I know, Darius said. Before they left, Dr. Coleman said one more thing. The rifle is yours, she said, legally, morally, spiritually, but it is also theirs, the 8 men, the families, the history. If you ever feel like it is too heavy to carry alone, reach out. They will help you. You are not alone in this. You never were. Your grandfather carried it alone for 54 years, but you do not have to. Darius nodded, understood. The drive back to Kansas was quiet. Jasmine did not push conversation. Just let Darius sit with his thoughts. Halfway home, he spoke. I enlisted, he said. Jasmine glanced at him. What? I enlisted, Darius repeated. Army. Signed the papers last week. I leave for basic training in 3 months. Jasmine pulled over, stopped the car, looked at him. Does your family know, she asked. Not yet, Darius said. I am going to tell them when I get home. Tonight, after I return the rifle. Why, Jasmine asked. Not judging, just asking, just trying to understand. Darius looked at the case in the back seat, the rifle inside, the weight of history, the burden of memory. Because I need to understand, he said, what my grandfather went through, what those 8 men went through, what it means to serve, what it means to sacrifice, what it means to be part of something bigger than yourself. I cannot carry this rifle if I do not understand what it represents. Cannot honor them if I do not know what they experienced. Jasmine was quiet for a long moment. Then, your grandfather did not want you to go to war, she said. I know, Darius said. He told me, before he died, said he hoped I would never have to see what he saw, do what he did, carry what he carried. But he also said something else. He said that if I chose to serve, I should do it for the right reasons, not for glory, not for revenge, not for politics, but for brotherhood, for the people beside you, for the promise that you will not leave them behind, that you will carry them home if they fall, that you will remember them if they do not make it. Jasmine nodded, started the car again. Your grandfather would be proud, she said. I hope so, Darius said. When they got back to Kansas, Darius called a family meeting. His mother, his aunts, his uncles, his cousins, everyone who mattered. He told them about the enlistment. His mother cried, not because she was angry, because she was scared, because she had just lost her father and now her son was choosing to walk into the same danger that almost killed him. I cannot lose you too, she said. You will not lose me, Darius said. I am coming back, I promise. She looked at him. You cannot promise that, she said. No one can promise that. You are right, Darius said. I cannot promise I will come back, but I can promise I will not waste what Grandpa gave me. I will not let his sacrifice be meaningless. I will not let those 8 men be forgotten. I will carry them forward. That is what I can promise. He showed them the rifle, told them the whole story, everything, about the exhibition, about the 8 families, about Patricia Mitchell Williams, about the letter, about what his grandfather had carried for 54 years. His family listened. Some cried, some asked questions, some sat in silence trying to process. At the end, his mother hugged him. Your grandfather kept that rifle for 54 years, she said. You better bring it back when you are done. You better honor his promise. Darius smiled. I will, he said. 3 months later, Darius left for basic training. Before he went, he did something. He went to the cemetery, to Leonard's grave, brought the rifle, sat on the ground next to the headstone, talked. Grandpa Darius said, I do not know if you can hear me, do not know if this works, but I need you to know something. I am scared, more scared than I have ever been. I do not know if I am strong enough to do this, to carry what you carried, to be what you were, to honor what you started. He paused. But I am going to try. I am going to serve. I am going to learn. I am going to understand. And when I come back, I am going to make sure your story is told, that those 8 names are never forgotten, that what you did mattered. That is my promise to you. He stood, saluted, then left. Jasmine heard about it later, from Darius's mother. She called to thank Jasmine for everything, for driving Darius to Washington, for being there, for caring when you did not have to. You did not have to do any of this, Darius's mother said. Yes, I did, Jasmine said. Your father-in-law taught me something. He taught me that some debts cannot be repaid, only carried forward, only honored through action, only kept alive through memory. Darius's mother was quiet. Then, he would have liked you, she said. I hope so, Jasmine said. Time passed. Darius completed basic training, top of his class, went to advanced individual training, excelled, went to sniper school. The instructors noticed something. He did not just shoot well. He understood why every shot mattered. Understood that accuracy is not just skill, but responsibility. That every target is a life. That killing is not glory, but burden. That survival carries weight. He wrote letters home, talked about Leonard, about the rifle, about the 8 names. He carried a photograph with him. The 9 men from the unit, young, in uniform, smiling at the camera with the confidence of people who do not know what is coming. He showed it to his instructors, told them the story. Word spread. Other soldiers heard, started asking questions, started wanting to know more. Darius became known as the kid with the legacy rifle, the one carrying his grandfather's weight, the one who understood that service is not about self, but about others. 2 years into his service, Darius was deployed, not to war, to a training mission in Africa, teaching local forces, building relationships, strengthening alliances. He was good at it, patient, thorough, respectful. He taught them not just how to shoot, but why accuracy matters, why every shot carries weight, why you never forget the target. Because the target is a person, and people matter. Even the enemy, even the ones you have to kill, they matter because taking a life should never be easy, should never be casual, should always carry weight. One day during deployment, a package arrived for Darius. No return address, just his name and unit designation. He opened it in his bunk. Inside was a photograph, black and white, faded. 9 men standing in front of jungle, young, armed, looking at the camera with expressions ranging from confidence to uncertainty. And a letter, handwritten, the handwriting shaky, old person handwriting. The letter was from a man named Robert Chen, 81 years old, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, weeks to live. The letter explained Chen had been a war correspondent, civilian, embedded with Leonard's unit in December 1969. He took the photograph 3 days before the ambush. He was not military, not armed, not trained for combat. When the ambush happened, he survived by hiding, by staying down, by not moving. He saw everything, saw the 9 men pinned down, saw 8 of them fall, saw Leonard refuse to leave the rifle, saw him drag it through the jungle with wounds that should have killed him, saw him choose burden over survival and somehow get both. Chen had carried guilt for 54 years. He had not saved them, had not helped, had not done anything but hide and survive and document. He was 23 years old, scared, untrained, but still, he felt like a coward, like he should have done something, anything. The letter continued, but he kept the photograph, kept the story. And when he saw Darius's interview online about the rifle in the exhibition, he knew it was time. Time to give the photograph to someone who would understand what it meant. Time to confess. Time to ask for something he did not deserve. Forgiveness. Darius read the letter 3 times. Then he called the number written at the bottom. An old man answered, voice weak, raspy, dying. This is Robert Chen, the voice said. This is Darius Washington, Darius said. I got your package. The line went silent, then crying, not loud, just quiet sobs. The sound of 54 years of guilt breaking open. I am sorry, Chen said. I should have helped them, should have done something. I was scared, I hid, and they died. I have carried that for my whole life. Carried the knowledge that I lived because I was a coward. Darius listened, let the man speak. Let him empty decades of shame into the phone. When Chen finished, Darius spoke. You did help them, Darius said. How Chen asked, his voice desperate, needing absolution, needing release. You remembered them, Darius said. You kept their face. You took this photograph 3 days before they died. That means there is proof they were alive, that they existed, that they were real people, not just names on a wall, not just statistics in a casualty report. Real, young, human. My grandfather could give me their names. You gave me their faces. You gave me proof they smiled, that they lived before they died. Chen was quiet, processing, trying to believe. I never thought of it that way, he said. My grandfather would have thanked you, Darius said, for remembering, for keeping their faces alive, for caring enough to carry this photograph for 54 years, for giving it to someone who would honor it. That is all he wanted, for someone to remember, for someone to care. You did that. You honored them by remembering. They talked for 2 hours. Chen told him about those 3 days, the last 3 days before the ambush, how the men joked, how they shared rations, how Lieutenant Mitchell read his Bible every night, How Corporal Brown sang hymns while cleaning his weapon. How Private Johnson showed everyone photos of his newborn son. How they were not soldiers in those moments, just young men far from home, trying to stay human in a place that wanted to strip that away, trying to remember who they were before the war, trying to believe they would get home. Chen cried through most of it, remembering, reliving, finally able to tell someone. Darius listened, did not judge, did not interrupt, just listened, just witnessed, just let the old man unburden himself before death. At the end, Chen said something Darius would never forget. I have been waiting to tell someone, Chen said, to confess, to be forgiven, but you did not forgive me. You thanked me. Why? Because you gave me something my grandfather could not, Darius said. He gave me their names, their service, their sacrifice. You gave me their humanity. You gave me proof they were more than soldiers. They were people. They laughed. They sang. They missed home. They were human. That matters. That changes everything. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then, I am dying, he said. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4, weeks, maybe days. I wanted to give you that photograph before I go. Wanted someone to have it who would understand, who would honor it. Darius looked at the photograph in his hand, the 9 faces looking back at him. Frozen in time, alive forever in that moment. Mr. Chen, Darius said, can I ask you something? Anything, Chen said. Can I visit you? Before you go. The line went quiet. Why, Chen asked. Because I want to hear the rest, Darius said. I want to know everything you remember about those 3 days. I want to record it. I want to make sure their humanity is preserved. And I want to say thank you in person for giving me this, for caring enough to remember, for keeping them alive in your memory for 54 years. Chen gave him an address, San Francisco, hospice care. Darius requested emergency leave. Got it. Flew to California. Found Chen in a small room. Dying body. Sharp mind. They sat together for 8 hours. Chen told him everything. Every detail he could remember. Every joke. Every meal. Every moment of humanity he witnessed in those 3 days. Darius recorded it all on his phone. Every word. Every pause. Every moment of silence when the memories became too heavy to speak. When it was time to leave, Darius shook Chen's hand, held it, looked him in the eye. Thank you, Darius said, for remembering them, for keeping them human, for giving me this gift. Chen smiled, weak but genuine. Thank you, Chen said, for letting me finally let go, for giving me peace, for showing me that what I did mattered. That remembering was enough, Darius nodded. It was always enough, he said. Remembering is how we honor the dead, how we keep them alive, how we make sure they mattered. Chen died 3 weeks later, peaceful, in his sleep. He left everything to Darius in his will, the photograph rights, his journals, his notes from those 3 days, everything he had documented about the unit, about the 9 men, about Leonard. Darius sent it all to the Smithsonian. Dr. Coleman called him when she received it. This is extraordinary, she said. This changes everything. With your permission, we would like to reopen the exhibition, make it permanent, add this new material, the photograph, the interviews, the journals, create a complete memorial, not just to your grandfather, to all 9 of them, to their humanity. Darius agreed. The exhibition reopened 6 months later, permanent this time, a permanent memorial, the rifle still in the center. But now with the photograph next to it, 9 faces, young, alive, together one last time. Below the photograph, a placard, taken by Robert Chen, December 16th, 1969, 3 days before the ambush. And a quote from Chen's journal, these 9 men shared their rations with me, told me about their families, sang hymns in the jungle, joked about what they would do when they got home. I carry their humanity with me. Even in death, they remain more alive than I ever was. When Darius came home from his service 2 years later, he was different, older, steadier, changed by what he had seen, what he had done, what he had learned. He went to the cemetery, sat with Leonard, talked. "Grandpa," he said, "I understand now what you carried. It was not just the rifle. It was not just the weight of metal and wood. It was the weight of 9 lives, yours and theirs. That is what makes it heavy. Not the physical weight, the moral weight, the weight of memory, the weight of duty, the weight of love." He paused. "I am ready now to carry it, to pass it on, and to make sure the story does not die, to make sure they are never forgotten, to make sure their humanity is preserved, to make sure people know they were more than soldiers. They were people. They mattered. They lived. They loved. They did. And someone carried them home." Darius started speaking at schools, at veteran events, at museums. He brought the rifle, told the story, showed the 8 names, showed the photograph, explained what his grandfather did, why it mattered, what it meant. Young people listened, asked questions, wanted to know more, wanted to understand. One kid, maybe 15, asked, "Why did your grandfather keep the rifle? Why not give it to a museum right away? Why wait 54 years?" Darius thought about that, considered, then answered. "Because it was not time yet," Darius said. "He was waiting. For me. For someone who would understand. For someone who would carry it forward with the right heart, the right intention. The museum could preserve it, put it behind glass, protect it. But I can keep it alive. I can tell the story. I can make sure people do not just see a rifle. They see 9 men. They see sacrifice. They see brotherhood. They see love. There is a difference between preservation and honor, between display and remembrance." The kid nodded, understood. 5 years after Leonard's death, Darius got married. Small ceremony, family and close friends. During the reception, he did something unexpected. He brought out the rifle, set it on a table, told the story to everyone there. "This rifle," Darius said, "is the reason I am here. Not just because my grandfather carried it out of that jungle, but because he taught me what it means to carry something bigger than yourself, what it means to honor the dead by refusing to forget them, what it means to keep promises even when no one is watching, even when it would be easier to let go." He looked at his new wife. "I am going to teach our children that," he said. "I am going to make sure they know where they come from, what was sacrificed so they could be here, what was carried so they could live free, so they never take freedom for granted, so they understand that every freedom has a cost, that someone paid it, that we owe them memory." His wife smiled, tears in her eyes. "I know," she said. "That is why I married you, because you understand what matters, because you carry weight without complaining, because you honor the past while building the future." 10 years after Leonard's death, Darius received a letter from the Department of Defense. Inside was a medal, posthumous for Leonard Washington, the Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration, awarded for actions in Ashau Valley, December 1969. It had taken 10 years, 10 years of paperwork, of verification, of bureaucracy, of red tape, of committees and reviews and investigations. But it finally came through, finally happened, finally gave Leonard the recognition he never asked for, but always deserved. Darius held the medal, read the citation, tears running down his face. "Call Jasmine. They did it," he said. "They finally recognized him officially, finally gave him what he earned 54 years ago." Jasmine did not ask what. She knew. She understood. There was a ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery. Full military honors, hundreds attended, veterans, families, officials, press. The 8 families were all there. united in honoring the man who carried their loved ones home, who refused to let them be forgotten, who kept his promise for 54 years, even when no one knew he was keeping it. Darius accepted the medal on his grandfather's behalf, gave a speech, short, simple, direct. My grandfather did not do what he did for a medal, Darius said. He did not do it for recognition. He did not do it for glory or honor or praise. He did it for his brothers, for the 8 men who did not come home. This medal is not his alone. It belongs to all 9 of them. The 8 who died and the one who carried them. He paused. I am placing this medal on his grave, leaving it there, because that is where it belongs. With him, with them, together. The audience stood, applauded, but Darius did not acknowledge it. Just walked to Leonard's grave, knelt down, placed the medal on the headstone, stood, saluted, walked away. Later, someone asked him, "Are you not going to keep it, display it, show people?" Darius shook his head. "It belongs with him," Darius said. "He earned it, not me. I am just the one who makes sure people remember why he earned it, what he did, what it cost, what it meant." That night, Darius sat in his living room, the rifle on the table in front of him, his children asleep upstairs, his wife beside him. He looked at the 8 names carved into the stock, touched each one, said each name aloud. Staff Sergeant James Mitchell, Corporal Antoine Brown, Private First Class Darnell Hughes, Specialist Terrence Williams, Private Malik Johnson, Corporal Cedric Grant, Private First Class Reginald Foster, Specialist Lamar Stevens, and in his mind he added a 9th name, Leonard Washington, the one who carried them home, the one who made sure they were not forgotten, the one who taught his grandson that some things are worth more than money, some things are worth carrying, even when they break you, even when they rust, even when no one sees, even when no one knows. Because rust means survival, and survival means memory, and memory means they did not die for nothing. Darius stood, wrapped the rifle in canvas, same canvas Leonard used, tied it with rope, put it in the closet. One day he would give it to his son or his daughter, and he would tell them the story, the whole story, every detail, every name, every sacrifice about 9 men who went to war, about 8 who did not come back, about 1 who carried them home, about a rifle that became a memorial, about a grandson who learned what it means to serve, about a legacy that will not die as long as someone remembers, as long as someone carries it forward, as long as someone refuses to let them be forgotten. That is the promise, that is the weight, that is the story. And it is not over. It will never be over, because some stories do not end. They just get passed on, from grandfather to grandson, from generation to generation, from memory to memory, from heart to heart. That is what Leonard Washington understood. That is what he carried. That is what he left behind. Not a rifle, not a medal, not recognition, a responsibility, a sacred duty, a promise that must be kept. And Darius would carry it for the rest of his life and then pass it on to his children. And they would pass it on to theirs, so the 8 names would never be forgotten, so the sacrifice would always be remembered, so the story would live forever, because that is what love does. That is what brotherhood demands. That is what honor requires. Not glory, not praise, just memory, just remembrance, just the refusal to let good men die forgotten in a jungle that most people want to forget. That is enough. That is everything.